Ambassador, I'd like to talk to you about three things. First, North Korea and what's been happening with North Korea in the last few days. Secondly, I'd like to talk to you about the president's trip to Asia. He just came back from that. And thirdly, I'd like to talk to you about the comment that he made regarding China and Taiwan. Let me just first get you to bring us up to speed on what North Korea has been doing, because we've been hearing talks about them possibly launching another missile or doing something provocative. It didn't happen during the president's trip there, but there's still the possibility it can happen anytime now, right?
That's correct. Yeah, JJ, I think the concern now is that there may be a seventh nuclear test out of North Korea. The sixth was a thermonuclear event, and it was in 2017, prior to the Donald Trump having summits with Kim Jong-un. So I think the concern is another nuclear test. But what we saw in the last few months, JJ, is very significant. We saw a launch of a Hwasong 17, which is an intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the whole of the United States, a successful launch. Subsequent to that, we saw a military parade on the 90th anniversary of the Korean People's Army, displaying two Hwasong 17s, ICBMs. We've heard pronouncements coming out of, and this is most significant, from Kim Jong-un saying they're now prepared to consider using nuclear weapons if there's a perceived threat to North Korea. And then doubling down on that comment, saying that they would even look at a preemptive use of a nuclear weapon if there's a perceived threat to the security of North Korea. So this is significant nuclear escalation coming out of North Korea over the last few months.
You said that North Korea's leaders and Kim Jong-un are not suicidal in the past. You still hold true to that thinking right now?
No, I do believe they're not suicidal. But I do believe also now he's using a nuclear weapons, and maybe he's got a bit from the Russians in their invasion and their war in Ukraine, where they've put nuclear weapons on the table. Now Kim Jong-un has put nuclear weapons front and center, not only as a nuclear deterrent, but possibly even to be used if there's a perceived threat, to be used preemptively if there's a perceived threat. So yeah. I think he's up the scale on that. So yes, I don't believe they are suicidal. I don't think he would incite something because he knows there would be the end of his regime and the end of North Korea if he did something. But I always look at the issue of miscalculation, misperception, or something of an accidental nature that could lend itself to nuclear conflict.
And that is the biggest concern, accidents and miscalculations. And speaking of which, President Biden said, he answered a question that was put to him about what the U.S. would do if China essentially decided to attack Taiwan. And I think the question was, would he come to their defense or something like that? And he said yes. And a lot of people thought that meant him saying essentially the U.S. military might actually go into action. What was your understanding of what he was most likely meaning there?
Well, I did interpret that to mean what you just said, that the president was saying that we would consider using our military to defend Taiwan if there was an invasion from the People's Republic of China.
So if is he serious about that, or did he misspeak?
Well, I mean, some of his advisors, I think, got to the media after that and said he's talking about providing military equipment, military aid, military weaponry for the defense of Taiwan, which is very clearly stated in the Taiwan Relations Act. We are committed to providing that military assistance. No, but my interpretation of what the president said was he said he would consider he would use the military to defend Taiwan. So I took it beyond just the provision of military weaponry and assistance to mean even the potential of deploying military personnel to defend Taiwan.
Well, that was definitely something that created a lot of tension during that trip. And part of what he was doing there was a meeting with the Quad. Can you explain for us, first of all, what the Quad is, and tell us what your thoughts were on the outcome of his meeting with these four countries?
Well, I mean, the Quad, the United States, it's Japan, it's Australia, and it's India coming together. But this is a defensive alignment, if you will, that has some economic overtones, but it's defensive in nature. So this is something that the President Biden and this administration has been pursuing. And certainly Australia and Japan and India are very supportive of joining the Quad. China views the Quad as not just a defensive economic arrangement, organization, but something that is meant to contain China. So China views this as a threat to China's security. I think that was the impetus there. And I think part of the president's discussions in South Korea may have even touched on the Quad, because I think the new Yoon administration in South Korea has talked about possibly joining the Quad, because they see it as a defensive mechanism that would help enforce the security of the Republic of Korea.
And if I could just step back for a minute to the China-Taiwan-U.S. thing, what was the response from China's leaders to President Biden's decision, or at least his comments, that he would most likely send the U.S. military to engage if China invaded Taiwan?
Well, I mean, the spokesman from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was very explicit in saying that they view this as something that's contravening the interest of China. It's affecting China's national security. They view Taiwan very clearly as a province of China, and this would be interference in China's domestic affairs. So China vehemently is opposed to any, if you will, introduction of a military intervention in any conflict between China and Taiwan. So, yeah, I mean, this is what's to be expected coming out of China. I mean, I think many have looked at the China issue in Taiwan as a very crucial issue, and it's a core element of China's strategic relationship with the outside world, if you will. They view Taiwan as a province of China, and they go back to the Shanghai Communique and the other communiques with the United States, where we have acknowledged that it's a one China policy. We've acknowledged that Taiwan is part of China, but we've also made it very clear, especially with the Taiwan Relations Act of 1979, that we expect this issue, the Taiwan-China issue, to be resolved peacefully. And anything beyond a peaceful resolution, we would view as a grave occurrence, and we would not react very favorably to that.
Yeah. So after everything that's taken place, from North Korea's actions to the president's visit, the Quad discussions and talk, the China-Taiwan-U.S. issue, how do you view relations in the region right now after this trip by President Biden?
Well, certainly with China, JJ, the tensions have escalated, I think, almost exponentially. I think the relationship with China is very tense, especially on the issue of Taiwan. There's no question about that, but also on Quad and indeed with the South Korea, when we talk about the operationalizing the deployment of the THAAD missile defense system, which the Yoon administration is prepared to do. So I think with China, it's very tense. However, with the other countries in East Asia, certainly South Korea and Japan, I think the relationship is very good. Australia, I think it's extremely good. And I also think with the with the other countries in ASEAN countries, I think the relationship is good. I think the U.S. is showing that we have a presence in the region. We care about the Indo-Pacific region, and we are a player there. And for those allies and partners, we're there for them. So I think, on a whole, I think the visit has gone well. I think the only issue is, of course, with China.
All right. Ambassador Joe Detrani, thank you so much, as always, for your excellent insight into these complicated issues, and we appreciate the time you give us every time to talk with us.
Thank you, JJ.